along the way, my values became code for I'm the only one with a moral compass. You know what would have been a better exercise? Write a top 10 list to yourself where you try to imagine 10 reasons why 77 million Americans didn't want to trust you with taking power. And I say that as someone who votes Democratic. As I like to remind my very pure friends, we voted for the same person. You're just why she lost.
Nobody saw this coming. Bill Maher turning on his own party live on television with this level of intensity. And he didn't hold back or work up to it gradually. He went straight in, dismantling their approach without pausing to soften any of it. Before getting into the rest of it, if breakdowns like this are your thing, take a second to subscribe to the channel. Now, back to what actually happened. Send over the next part whenever you're ready, since that's where the actual content of what Maher said will come in.
Immigrants still want to assimilate, but some now have this other attitude of melting pot. You melt. Look, you don't have to love everything about America. We don't. That's why Yelp was invented. But, you know, if you do get past ice, America's actually pretty cool. We say you do you. Eat the food your grandma cooked. Speak another language at home. Celebrate religious holidays. We welcome your food, your art, your fashion, your first ladies. But you have to answer one question. Do you like Western civilization? Because that's what we are, and that's not negotiable.
Then Maher went straight at what he called the assimilation problem and said something almost no Democrat on television is willing to say publicly anymore. His point, America has always welcomed people from every part of the globe, but the country still operates on a shared foundation, and that foundation is rooted in Western civilization. That's the core of his argument. It's also, notably, the exact message that used to sit at the center of the liberal project. Come here, bring your food, your language, your traditions, but respect the framework that already exists. That used to be old-school liberal orthodoxy. According to Maher, it's a message the modern Democratic Party has simply stopped saying out loud.
And then admit that in 2020, the left got a little carried away. Carried away, like most of the merch at this shoe store. Get it, carried away? Once in a while, they need a lift. Looting was rebranded as justice shopping. We stopped arresting shoplifters. Anti-racist baby was a bestseller. Corporations took DEI to ludicrous lengths. We opened our hearts to all who wanted to come here, and then also our borders. Portland decriminalized all drugs, and Seattle set up a no-cop zone until they had to reverse course on both. Standardized testing was dropped until schools saw how dumb that was.
Then came what's being framed as his 2020 confession, and it's worth sitting with for a second. Critics of the modern left say this is the kind of honesty that's been missing from that side of the aisle for 4 years running. Maher's argument, according to his critics' summary, ran through a list. Looting reframed as a form of justice, shoplifting cases largely left unprosecuted, standardized testing dropped from admissions at the country's top universities, and corporations funneling millions into initiatives the public never actually asked for. Supporters of this take insist none of it is speculation. They argue it's simply documented, verifiable history. And their bottom line is this: until the party is willing to acknowledge it overcorrected, they don't see working-class voters having much reason to come back.
Even Cracker Barrel recently decided that they felt a little embarrassed that it was so popular with bumpkins who salivate at the sight of an old wagon wheel screwed to the wall. So they changed it to this, which got them no new customers, well, off the old ones. It reminded me of when Chuck Schumer said in 2016 that For every blue-collar Democrat we lose in western Pennsylvania, we're going to pick up 2 moderate Republicans in the suburbs of Philly, Ohio, Illinois, and Wisconsin. Yeah, how'd that work out? But at least Cracker Barrel had the sense to immediately say, "Oh, sorry," and put the sling blades back on the wall. Democrats don't seem...
Then Maher pivoted to an analogy. Cracker Barrel, the national restaurant chain that attempted a rebrand, and in the span of a single weekend, nearly alienated the entire customer base that had kept it running for decades. Critics say this comparison lands because it captures what they see as the broader Democratic strategy in recent years: drift away from a loyal, existing base, while chasing a new audience that was never particularly interested in the first place.
Seem to want to be that upscale store that impresses celebrities. Anybody remember Barney's? It was this store in New York that started in the 1920s, as a discount clothing joint on unfashionable, grimy 7th Avenue, a place where their customers, the working man, could get a decent suit at a very reasonable price. I remember going there in 1993 to get my wardrobe for a new show Comedy Central was launching called Politically Incorrect. Thank you. Yeah. We had no budget, and this was a place you could buy 5 suits for $2,000. Well, right after that, they opened a place on Madison Avenue, Barney's did, where you could buy 1 suit for $5,000. They wanted to party with the cool kids, and for a while they got to. For a while.
Next came Barney's, a retailer that started out serving working-class customers and gradually transformed into something closer to an exclusive space catering to celebrities and the wealthy, before eventually shutting down entirely. This is where Maher's argument sharpens into a direct message aimed at his own party. His point: the Democratic Party used to be a place where a plumber, a teacher, and a union tradesman could all feel equally at home. In his view, it's since become the political equivalent of a high-end storefront on Fifth Avenue, selling ideas that, practically speaking, only affluent college graduates can afford to buy into. And in that shift, he argues, the working-class customer simply walked away.
Call it now, go no contact. This belief that Trump voters, even if it's your own parents, are too deplorable for human contact and must be cut off. You know, like Scientologists do to suppressive people. A former speechwriter for Obama named David Litt wrote an op-ed this year called, "Is it time to stop snubbing your right-wing family?" where he admitted he'd had a change of heart and that was the wrong approach. So, of course, then the woke wing tried to banish him for breaking ranks on their policy of hating people who don't agree with you on everything, because what fun is life if you're not cutting somebody off? Mr. Litt asked the question, what has all this banishing accomplished?
Then Maher pointed to what he called the go no contact trend, and the numbers behind it are striking. Citing a September 2024 survey from the American Psychiatric Association, he noted that roughly 1 in 5 Americans have become estranged from a family member specifically over political disagreements. 22% said they'd blocked a relative on social media, and 19% admitted to skipping a family event entirely because of politics. He also referenced a 2025 survey, reportedly from The Argument, showing that 40% of Harris voters said cutting off a family member over politics was acceptable, compared to just 11% of voters on the other side. For Maher, that gap is the whole argument in miniature. The party that positions itself as the champion of empathy is, in his view, currently presiding over a wave of family breakups nationwide.
That's right. You know, John Kennedy had a great line, Mark. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And I think the Democratic Party has sort of inverted that right now. The animating ideas behind the Democratic Party are, one, the giant welfare state, which is just consuming us and is doing things like providing welfare benefits for people making as much as $500,000 for cooking classes. And then the identity politics, the identity grievance, which is this idea that the West is somehow oppressive. when in fact the West has done more to liberate billions of people and guarantee the economic advancement, security of billions of people more.
Julian Epstein made the case that Democrats have effectively inverted John F. Kennedy's most famous line, and critics of the party say the evidence backs him up. On January 20th, 1961, Kennedy stood on the Capitol steps and delivered the words that would go on to define a generation. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. According to this argument, the modern Democratic Party has flipped that message entirely. Instead, the pitch has effectively become, what more can government provide for me? And the underlying critique here is pointed. A party that no longer asks anything of its own citizens, in this view, is a party that has quietly stopped believing in the country itself.
I get it that for the Democrats, this was a brutal loss. But the plan to deal with it has to be something better than stay in a snit and take advantage of this magical time of year to cut people off. The Huffington Post has articles like, my husband voted for Trump, so I'm canceling Thanksgiving and Christmas. Oh, gee, not having to buy you a present. That'll teach him. But family isn't like gender. You can't fix it by cutting off members. The chief psychiatric resident at Yale University, Amanda Calhoun, recently told Joy Reid it's okay to cut off family members if they voted for Trump and tell them, I'm not going to be around you this holiday. Oh, how pure. It's like not letting certain people sit with you on the bus. She also said that it shouldn't be automatic that family members think they're entitled to your time. She said that's just a societal norm. Family. Who do they think they are? Family?
Then the segment turned to a specific example, a Yale psychiatrist appearing on national television and encouraging viewers to cut off family members over how they voted. Critics point to moments like this as exactly the kind of behavior they believe has pushed Middle America away from the modern left. The claim being circulated cites a Cornell University initiative referred to as the Family Reconciliation Project, which reportedly found that more than 27% of Americans, an estimated 67 million people, are currently estranged from a close family member, with political polarization now cited as one of the leading drivers. For critics making this argument, the conclusion is blunt. This isn't compassion, it's coldness being repackaged as courage.
Along the way, my values became code for I'm the only one with a moral compass. You know what would have been a better exercise? Write a top 10 list to yourself where you try to imagine 10 reasons why 77 million Americans didn't want to trust you with taking power. And I say that as someone who votes Democratic. As I like to remind my very pure friends, we voted for the same person. You're just why she lost. Can we please try to remember, especially at this time of year, that most people don't decide their politics. They inherit them. It's about where you grew up in America, what your parents taught you, your life experiences, your religion.
Then came a moment that drew visible reaction from the audience. Maher made the point that, especially around this time of year, it's worth remembering that most people don't actually choose their politics from scratch. They inherit them. It comes from where you were raised, what your parents instilled in you, your life experience, your religious upbringing. It's less a conscious decision and more an inherited framework. Reacting to that same idea, someone in the room could be heard responding with something like, "That's exactly why she lost," pointing to the disconnect between how the party talks about voters and how those voters actually arrive at their beliefs.
If we ever want this nation to be not broken, both sides have to admit what they suck at. Ask a Republican what the plan is for health care. It'll be cheaper and everyone will be covered and no one will ever die and it'll be out in 2 weeks.
We're going to have fantastic health care.
We have a great plan coming out. It's just about completed now.
Within 2 weeks. 3 weeks? 4 weeks? 2 weeks?
It might be Sunday, but it's going to be very soon.
The Democrat version of that is immigration. Here's a graph that shows immigration under Bush and then Obama and then Trump first term, pretty much the same. Then we get to Biden. Well, Democrats can say they weren't for open borders, but it sure looks like someone left the gate unlocked. There are 500 million people in South and Central America. We can't take them all. Someone's got to grow the cocaine.
Then came the immigration numbers, and according to Maher, they tell a very different story than the one his party has been selling. Citing U.S. Customs and Border Protection data, he pointed to average monthly encounters at the southwest border reaching close to 160,000 under the Biden administration, with daily spikes exceeding 15,000 on the worst days. Across 4 full years, CBP recorded an estimated 11 million total encounters at the southern border. December 2023 alone saw nearly 250,000 encounters in a single month, reportedly the highest monthly total ever recorded in the modern era. For context, the previous administration's peak year topped out at 1.4 million encounters in 2019. Under Biden, 2023 alone hit 3.2 million. Maher's takeaway is straightforward. In his view, the party that once positioned itself as the defender of the working class lost sight of the fact that working families are typically hit hardest when border policy bikes down.
This was Canada's main opposition party in 2011. Now they're in a distant third place. Sound familiar? Yeah? And why? The modern left in America and now Canada placed one issue above all: identity. Forget illegals, homelessness, or the baffling popularity of Drake. Their strategy? Equity cards. They created a system where differences are exalted instead of similarities, which only results in conflict. They end up turning on themselves because identity politics is a zero-sum game. I suppose other Canadians should be grateful. I mean, if you let the self-absorbed devour each other, they're less likely to annoy you. Except until they get into power.
Then the conversation shifted to Canada, an example Gutfeld raised because, as he frames it, it's a live example playing out right now in the country most culturally similar to the US. Critics of the identity-focused approach argue the results back up his point. Canada's new Democratic Party, once the country's leading opposition party, has fallen to a distant third-place position after years of leaning heavily into identity-based politics. And that, in this argument, is the real cautionary tale. When political messaging divides people into an ever-expanding list of separate categories, it ends up creating competition between groups that used to work in coalition together. That, critics say, is the exact trap the American left risks walking into as well.
They punted it. Okay, you're absolutely right. Immigration did go up during those years.
Well, asylum. They changed the definition of asylum, and
yes.
they immediately reversed like stay in Mexico or wait in Mexico or something. He
Yes,
had a different
chill out
policy.
in Mexico.
I mean,
Is that-
chill out in
Yeah.
Mexico. Yes.
Just fucking chill, man. Wait there.
And we were still, letting in, as we should. We are a nation of immigrants, and we need immigrants.
There you go.
But most Americans felt, including lots of Democrats and people of color, and he won the Latino vote by half. Come on, man. Like, at a certain point, everybody was around the idea that, okay, immigration, fine, but it has to be somewhat orderly, and not anyone.
Yes, and again,
and asylum had a certain specific meaning, which went up in the air. They overcorrected.
Next came what's being framed as an overcorrection confession, something critics argue the party has been unwilling to say out loud. Citing a February 2023 Washington Post ABC News poll, Maher pointed out that 59% of Americans disapproved of how the Biden administration handled the border, and that disapproval wasn't confined to one side. It cut across Democrats, independents, and voters from virtually every demographic background. His point sharpens further from there. When even Latino voters,
a community Democrats have long positioned themselves as representing, sided with the opposing party on immigration specifically, the signal was hard to ignore. In Maher's framing, the country was asking for an orderly, functional system, and instead, it got chaos.
You say no mention of the perfect border. The border is closed.
The border's a win.
The border's a win. We don't want to become the kidnap country. They're taking out of Iran's nuclear capability. I was very supportive of bombing the nuclear facility in Iran. I thought that was great. Venezuela. Do I love everything about it? No. But do I hate it? No. If he somehow gets Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran all to be not these horrible places they were, he should get a Nobel Peace Prize. The return of the hostages and the peace deal in the Middle East, where the liberal panel was praising you. A lot of people tried to pull this off. He did.
Give him credit. If he's good at getting deals done overseas, give him credit for it.
And here's a few you didn't even mention.
Then Maher did something critics say his own party consistently refuses to do. He gave the other side credit where he felt it was due. His reasoning is straightforward. If you can't acknowledge it when the opposing side gets something right, whether that's securing the border, eliminating a major threat, or bringing hostages home, voters eventually stop taking you seriously as a source of honest analysis. Citing CBS News data, he noted that monthly border encounters in March 2025 dropped below 7,200, reportedly the lowest figure recorded in decades. Whether or not that outcome lined up with his own party's preferred narrative, Maher's point was that everyday Americans noticed the shift regardless.
I also think Kamala Harris could have a moment if she trotted out her favorite phrase and said, "Let me be very clear. Our schools need to do better. Our kids need to be in school, and when they're there, they need to have the phones off and the brains on, learning the basic things we used to teach. And the idea that testing is rooted in white supremacy is in itself a racist belief that says black children can't compete with white children on tests, which they surely can."
Then came what's being described as the speech Kamala Harris never gave, and in Maher's view, that's exactly the problem. His argument is that one clear, straightforward message about American schools could have earned genuine applause in nearly every swing county in the country. But according to Maher, she couldn't deliver that message, because doing so risked immediate backlash from the more activist-driven wing of her own party. That, in his framing, is the trap the Democrat Party finds itself in. The party often knows what message would actually resonate, but is too afraid of internal blowback to say it out loud.
You, the Democratic Party, you got to come together. You cannot, listen, this is what socialists in this country on the Democratic side are doing. Their mentality is, yo, flow with us. Otherwise, you ain't going to get our vote. And we gonna convince people not to go to the polls for you. Here's my point. Last time I checked, we still in a binary system. You vote one way or the other. Where you going? Where's the Democrats that's gonna look at the Democratic Socialists of the party and say?
Then Stephen A. Smith weighed in directly, stating plainly that Democratic Socialists have grown into a genuine, influential force within his own party. A moment in this framing that mainstream Democrats have spent years trying to avoid confronting head-on. From there, Maher lays out what he sees as the party's remaining options, and in his view, there are really only two. Either publicly draw a line and push back against that wing, or continue allowing it to pull the broader party brand further away from where the country actually stands.
Conservatives think the liberals are insane, and they're not completely wrong. Now, I don't think most liberals are insane, but neither do they make it clear they disapprove of the ones who are, and their cowardice in not marginalizing their own crazies has been their downfall. I couldn't get Neil deGrasse Tyson, a genius scientist and preeminent scientific voice in the media, to agree that it was ridiculous for Scientific American and The Atlantic to be claiming that separating sports by doesn't make sense. Yes, it does. Actually, it makes perfect sense. And it's obvious that it does. And there's a lot of stuff like that on the left. And when conservatives see it, they say, I'm sorry, we're just not going to go along with reinventing society, often pointlessly, even if we have to cancel democracy to do it. That's what they're saying. They see gender as only a construct, and they say, we're not doing that. Transing kids by self-diagnosis with no age limit, no parental notification, and no acknowledgement of social contagion, not doing it.
That set up what's being called the call to take a stand. A moment critics say Maher finally addressed something his own party has avoided discussing openly for years. The issue, in his framing, isn't really the extreme wing itself. It's the mainstream leadership's reluctance to publicly call that wing out. His argument boils down to this. Until someone within the party is willing to draw a clear public line and marginalize the fringe elements, the broader country will keep conflating ordinary Democrats with the loudest activist voices, to the detriment of the party as a whole.
We don't do here, and it's not negotiable, and it's not white values. These are liberal values. People fought and died to establish them, and it's not racist to say, if you want to come here to help form a more perfect union, great. But some things are too fundamental to change. The separation of religion and state, for example. And I would say the same thing to nationalists. Democracy, not theocracy. Free speech, even about religion. Equal rights for women.
Do you value Western civilization? Because that's exactly what we are, Maher said, and that's not up for debate. That single line captures his entire argument. Critics are calling it one of the most honest statements a lifelong liberal has made on television in years. Because Maher did something most Democrats avoid entirely. He drew a line and named an actual value. He said out loud what he believes the country fundamentally stands for. In his view, this is the exact conversation his party needs to have and keeps refusing to have. Free speech isn't negotiable. Equal rights aren't negotiable. Separating religion from government isn't negotiable. Choosing democracy over theocracy isn't negotiable. These, according to Maher, aren't conservative talking points. They're the foundation everything else is built on. And a party that can't say these are our values out loud in his framing is a party that will keep losing elections it should be winning by default.